Hey, Chris Ferdinandi here with another Vanilla.js quick tip. Let's get into it. One really common question that I get from students is how to know when to use let versus const, or more often, hey, how come you use let for everything and never use const? So as a general rule of thumb, I just use let for everything because I don't think that const adds much value, and I don't want to waste time thinking about which one to pick. There's a bit more nuance to it than that, of course. So for variable declarations, when you prefix a variable with a variable declaration, so var, let, or const, it defines a new variable. Omitting a variable declaration updates an existing variable. And there's a caveat to this. If you don't use a variable declaration and a variable isn't currently defined, JavaScript will create a new variable. You should always use a declaration to define a new variable, though. So here, I'm defining wizard with a value of Gandalf, and then I'm updating it. If I hadn't already defined wizard and I did this, the browser would create a new wizard variable with a value of Radagast. Let does almost the same exact thing as var. The big difference between let and var is that I can't redeclare a variable set with let in the same scope. So here, if I define a variable of sandwich and then again define a variable of sandwich using var, this is perfectly valid and sandwich will have a value of chicken. If I try to do that with let, here defining chips as Cape Cod and then again defining chips as Lay's, this is going to throw an uncaught syntax error. Identifier chips has already been declared. If I instead omit the let declaration and just say chips equals Lay's, that updates perfectly fine because I'm not trying to define a new variable, I'm just updating an existing one. Unlike var and let, if you define a variable with const, it cannot be given a new variable. It is, as the term implies, constant. So here I've defined a variable of sandwich using const and given it a value of tuna. And if I try to reassign it to chicken, I'm going to get uncaught type error assignment to const variable or constant variable. It's a bit misleading though, because if you have an object or an array defined with const, you can't redefine it, but you can add and remove items from it. So for example, here I've created a constant array of sandwiches with tuna and chicken as its values. And I can push PB and J into the sandwiches array, no problem, even though it's a constant variable. Now, if I tried to redefine it, say wiping out the variable like this, that would throw an error. But the items in this array absolutely can be modified, even though it was defined with const. And so that's just a little bit of like a getcha or like an area where the name for this variable declaration doesn't really meet what I think a lot of the expectations for it are. So which variable declaration should you use? Generally speaking, use let for values that will change and const for ones that won't or shouldn't. Avoid var entirely since let does the same thing, but a little bit better. Now, all that said, I personally hate thinking about whether to use let or const, and I think the value of const as a variable declaration is a little bit overstated, so I tend to just use let for everything. But as always, if you find const useful and you get value out of it and you find it easy to read, please go ahead and use it. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and maybe even share it with someone else who you think might enjoy it. You can also get my daily developer tips newsletter over at gomakethings.com, where every weekday I share a new tip, trick, tool, or Vanilla.js snippet to help you build a simpler and more resilient web. Thanks so much for watching.